Who sent you?
Listen up,
He
soldiers.
clutched her throat
This mission
strap
is critical.
until they
We move
discovered
at
she
dawn.
trained half the Navy SEAL. He grabbed her throat strap like she was nothing, like she didn't belong. What unit sent you? He demanded. The room froze, because none of them knew the truth. Yet, the quiet woman they dismissed had trained half the Navy SEALs standing there. The room smelled like metal, sweat, and burned coffee. The kind of place where voices stayed low and egos stayed high. Tactical briefing room, see fluorescent lights. A digital clock blinking red seconds into the wall. Lieutenant Mark Havorson didn't mean to grab her. That's what he would tell himself later. She stepped forward during the drill, just one step. Calm, too calm. Her hand rose slightly, palm open, a reflex older than thought. "Hold," she said, not loud, not soft, just certain. Havorson turned fast, his patience already thin. Long night. New command, eyes on him. He saw her, shorter than him, plain uniform, no visible unit patch. "Who sent you?" He snapped. No answer. That silence irritated him more than defiance. He closed the distance in 2 steps and grabbed the strap near her throat, not choking, not violent, but claiming space, testing dominance. Her eyes didn't widen, they softened. That's what unsettled him. "Don't interrupt my drill," he said. "Ever!" Around them, operators froze. No one moved, no one spoke. Some looked away. Some watched closely, curious how this would end. She didn't raise her hands, didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, the way instructors do when deciding how much correction someone needs. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "your rear flank is open." A murmur rippled through the room. Havorson scoffed. "You logistics?" Still nothing from her face. Behind them, an older man near the back, gray hair, civilian jacket, posture still military, slowly closed his notebook. Colonel James Rourke hadn't spoken in 3 briefings. He spoke now. "Mark," he said. Just the name. Havorson turned annoyed. "Sir, I've got this." Rourke stood slowly, every movement deliberate. "Let go of her," he said. Havorson hesitated, then laughed under his breath. "Why?" he asked. Rourke's eyes didn't leave the woman. "Because," he said, voice steady, "you're holding the person who taught 6 of the men in this room how not to die." Silence fell heavy. The woman finally exhaled. And that was only the beginning. Her name was Elena Cross ***, though most people on base didn't know it. They knew her as contract support, or logistics liaison, or, less kindly, the quiet one. She preferred it that way. For 3 years, Elena had moved through the base like a shadow. Clipboard, neutral tone, no rank to salute, no stories to tell. She learned where to stand so she wouldn't block hallways, learned when to speak and when silence carried more weight. Invisibility was safety. Before that, she had been something else entirely. Before that, she had been *Raven actual ***. No one called her that anymore. She woke every morning at 4:30, not because she had to, but because her body remembered. She ran the perimeter trail while the sky was still gray, ate alone, sat in the back of rooms, took notes no one asked for. Men like Havorson saw what they expected to see. A support role, a woman, someone temporary. They didn't see the old scar near her collarbone. They didn't see the way she tracked exits without looking. They didn't see her count breaths when rooms got loud. They didn't know about the night in Fallujah when everything broke. That night had taken her voice for a long time. During briefings, when officers spoke over her, she folded that hurt neatly inside herself. When younger operators joked too loudly, she remembered faces she would never see again. Colonel Rourke knew. He had known her before the silence. He watched how she never sat with her back to a door, how she flinched not visibly but internally when someone raised their voice behind her. He offered her a teaching role once. She said no, offered again. She said not yet, so he gave her space, gave her cover, gave her time, because he had seen what happened when people forced warriors to return before they were ready. And Elena had been a warrior long before she disappeared into paperwork. Now, standing in that room, with a lieutenant's hand at her throat strap, the past pressed close. But she didn't panic. She grounded herself the way she taught others to, feet, breath, presence, and waited for the truth to catch up. Havorson released her slowly, like letting go of something hot. The room stayed quiet, too quiet. "Sir," he said to Rourke, trying to recover, "with respect." Rourke raised a hand. "That'll be enough." He turned to Elena. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded once. That nod carried weight, the kind that comes from someone who knows pain well enough not to dramatize it. Rourke faced the room. "Everyone sit." No one argued. Havorson's jaw tightened as he took his seat, pride bruised, confusion creeping in. Rourke gestured to the center mat. "Elena," he said, "show them." She hesitated, old instincts pushed back. Stay invisible, stay safe. Then she looked at the operators, at the young faces, at the overconfidence that reminded her of men she'd buried. She stepped forward. "No injuries," she said calmly. "No force, just awareness." She turned to Havorson. "Lieutenant, may I?" His pride wanted to say no. His curiosity said yes. "Fine," he muttered. She stood within arm's reach, close enough to feel his breath, close enough to read tension in his shoulders. "Attack me," she said, a laugh from the back, nervous. Havorson lunged, fast, strong, trained. Elena moved like water, one step, a pivot. His momentum betrayed him. In less than 2 seconds he was off balance, his wrist controlled, his weight compromised. She stopped before pain. "Dead," she said softly. She released him. The room exhaled as one. Havorson stared at her, shocked, humbled. "You used my force," he said. She nodded. "You offered it." Rourke scanned the room. "Anyone else?" No one spoke. He smiled faintly. "Good, because if you didn't recognize that technique, you weren't paying attention 5 years ago." Murmurs, realization. One operator whispered, "Raven drills." Another stiffened. "No way." Elena stepped back. She hadn't wanted this moment, but it had come anyway. And now the silence wasn't dismissive. It was reverent. They gathered later in the smaller room. No cameras, no formal briefing, just chairs in a circle. Rourke didn't force introduction. Elena spoke when she was ready. "I didn't come here to be known," she said. "I came here to work." Her voice was steady, but quiet, like someone relearning how much space they were allowed to take. Years ago, she had been recruited not for strength, but for calm. For the way she stayed present when things went wrong, for the way she saw patterns others missed. She trained men twice her size, younger, louder, sometimes angrier. She taught them how to breathe under fire, how to notice small things, how to survive panic. They called her tough, then they called her cold. Then came the mission that went bad. She didn't share details. She never did. Just this: "I gave an order. It was right, and it still cost lives." Silence followed. "After that," she continued, "I couldn't be their voice anymore, so she stepped away." No ceremony, no medals, just a quiet transfer and a quieter role. Havorson listened with his hands clasped tight. Shame crept in slowly. "I didn't know," he said. Elena met his eyes. "That's the point," she replied. Rourke stood. "Some people lead from the front," he said. "Others make sure everyone else makes it home." He looked at Elena. She did both. No one spoke after that. They didn't need to. The following week, an unplanned drill was announced. Full simulation, no warnings. Elena was assigned as observer. Halfway through, systems failed. Comms went dark. Confusion spread. She saw panic rise. She stepped in, not loud, not commanding. Clear, slow your breathing. Check your corners. Trust your training. They did. Later, when the drill ended, the room felt different, more grounded, more human. Havorson approached her. "I owe you an apology," he said. She nodded. "Apology accepted. Not forgiven, not forgotten, just accepted." Teaching was never about applause. For Elena, it had never been about being noticed or praised. It was about survival, about giving someone the tools to leave a room alive when she couldn't stand beside them anymore. Every movement she demonstrated, every correction she offered, carried a weight far beyond what the younger operators could understand. She stood in the empty training hall, hands folded behind her back, watching Lieutenant Havorson struggle through a tactical sequence. The man was competent. He had to be. But his arrogance and pride often blinded him to the smallest but crucial details. Elena stepped forward silently, approaching him like a shadow, her presence almost unnoticed until it mattered. "Your angle," she said softly, pointing toward the wall where he had misjudged a line of sight. "You're exposed from the left flank." Havorson froze. The correction was simple, almost mundane, yet in that one sentence she delivered years of knowledge, lessons learned through fire and loss. He blinked, hesitated, and then adjusted. The subtle shift made a difference. Around them, others watched, quiet, attentive, absorbing knowledge they didn't even know they needed. Some leaned forward, instinctively respecting her space while feeling the gravity of her words. Elena never raised her voice. She never demanded attention. Her authority wasn't loud. It was quiet, relentless, and undeniable. After the exercise, she walked along the perimeter, watching them practice. Each correction, each subtle adjustment felt like leaving a part of herself behind. She didn't need gratitude. She had learned early that the lives she touched would remember, even if only in instinct. In the back of the hall, Rourke observed. He had known for years how powerful her presence was, and he smiled faintly, a rare expression. Some lessons couldn't be taught in books. Some teachings didn't come in ranks or medals. Some were carried silently, stitched into muscles, reflexes, and the quiet awareness of one's surroundings. And Elena carried them all, every lesson, every life saved, every heartbreak endured, without a word. Weeks later, a letter arrived at the base. It was handwritten, sealed with care, and addressed in a careful hand to Elena Cross. She opened it quietly in her office, sunlight spilling across the worn paper. "You trained my son," the letter began. "He didn't come home, but he saved 3 others. He told me once he learned that from you. That day, he told me he wanted to make a difference, and that he could because someone like you taught him how." Elena's hands trembled. The words were simple, the grammar imperfect, but every line carried weight heavier than a medal could ever convey. For years, she had buried herself in anonymity, in the quiet shadow of the base. Her sacrifices had gone unseen. She had learned to accept it. Her work was never about recognition. Yet here, in this fragile, trembling note, she felt the true measure of what she had given. Not glory, not fame, life. Lives saved because she had chosen to show up, even when the world had asked her to step back. A tear slipped down her cheek, not for the boy who had died, not for herself, but for the invisible threads that connected them, the unspoken bond between teacher and student, the legacy of courage passed silently from one to another. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel it, the quiet pride of knowing she mattered, even when the world didn't see her. Lieutenant Havorson requested a private meeting the following day. Elena had anticipated it. I need to learn humility," he said, voice low, stripped of bravado. He avoided her eyes, staring instead at the floor. "I thought I understood leadership. I thought I knew what it meant to guide men in life-or-death situations. I see now, I didn't." Elena studied him. His pride had been bruised, but his sincerity was undeniable. That was the moment that mattered, the quiet admission, unforced, that he could grow. "You will," she said finally, "if you allow yourself to." Havorson exhaled, shoulders slumping as if the weight of years of misunderstanding had lifted just slightly. He didn't speak again, but the room seemed lighter after his confession, as though the recognition of truth itself carried relief. Sometimes teaching isn't about instructions or tactics. It's about reflection. Seeing someone break through ego and fear to acknowledge their shortcomings and letting them step into better versions of themselves. Elena watched him leave, and in that small moment she realized the impact of her presence didn't always come from action. Sometimes it came from stillness, from letting the truth speak louder than force ever could. Weeks turned into months, and the changes were subtle but undeniable. Drills became more precise. Operators moved with awareness, checking corners, communicating without noise, responding to potential threats before they escalated. Injuries were fewer. Mistakes that would have been fatal were corrected early. No ceremony marked the shift. No one applauded. And yet, Elena knew it was a victory. A quiet, invisible victory that didn't require recognition. She had reshaped the room without ever needing to dominate it, leaving her mark in movements, instincts, and reactions, rather than words or medals. Her presence was a shadow, but it was a shadow that protected lives. Havorson sometimes caught himself glancing at her during exercises, noting the calm precision in her posture, the way she never wasted a breath or a gesture. It unnerved him, but it also taught him. Some victories are not loud. They are invisible threads woven into a system of safety, awareness, and respect. And Elena, as always, preferred it that way. Eventually, someone asked about the scar near her collarbone, a faint, almost imperceptible line beneath her uniform. Elena paused, letting the silence stretch before she spoke. "Proof," she said softly, voice steady, eyes distant. "Proof I stayed. Proof I made it through the things that were meant to break me. No one pressed further. They didn't need to." The scar told the story better than she ever could. It was a reminder not of weakness, but of endurance. Pain endured, battles survived, and a quiet strength carried forward. Elena touched it gently with her fingertips, a silent acknowledgement of the life she had lived, the choices she had made, and the invisible legacy she continued to build every day. Her life had been full of shadows, silences, and hidden victories. And now, those shadows protected more than just herself. They protected everyone who passed through the halls she moved through quietly, deliberately, with purpose. That mattered. The new recruits arrived with wide eyes and clenched jaws, carrying dreams bigger than their experience. Elena watched them silently from the doorway, notebook in hand, posture relaxed but alert. She didn't greet them with fanfare. She didn't need to. Her presence alone set a tone. Here was someone who had lived through the worst and survived. They didn't yet know her story. They didn't know the weight of her past, the lives she had touched quietly, the scars she carried. They only saw calm, confidence, and the way she moved through the hallways without wasting a breath. During exercises, she corrected them with small gestures, a hand lightly guiding a wrist, a tilt of the head showing the angle they missed, a whisper in their ear reminding them to breathe through panic. They didn't notice it at first. The lessons seeped in slowly, unannounced, absorbed instinctively. Halvorsen occasionally watched, now silent and attentive, noticing the subtle authority she wielded. Respect had been earned here quietly, not demanded, and he was beginning to understand that. Elena never claimed credit. She never looked for recognition. Her teaching wasn't about applause, it was about survival. And in these young faces, she saw potential. She saw the legacy of every life she had once trained, every operator who had walked the line between life and death, carrying her lessons with them without even realizing it. And as she passed through the room, checking their positions and breathing, she realized that this was the cycle of quiet strength, unseen, enduring, and life-saving. One evening, after drills ended, a young operator lingered, hesitant, eyes wide. "Ma'am," he said softly, "who sent you? Why are you here?" Elena paused. She could have given the standard answer, logistics, contract support, no one, but instead she knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "No one sent me," she said quietly. "I chose to be here. I chose to stay. That's all you need to know." The boy blinked, uncertainty mixed with awe. He didn't press further. He didn't need to. Sometimes, she realized, the choice to show up mattered more than the reason, and the people who noticed that choice, even in silence, would carry it forward in ways she could never see. Weeks later, the operators moved with an almost invisible shift in energy. Confidence had replaced ego. Awareness had replaced arrogance. Halvorsen, now quieter, now reflective, finally understood. Respect isn't demanded, he realized. It's earned through presence, consistency, and quiet authority. It's earned in how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Elena's influence wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, but it was profound. It rippled through every drill, every decision, every silent action in the hallways. She had never sought recognition, and yet she had transformed lives. Years passed. Operators graduated, recruits left, some never returned, and still Elena remained, quiet, unassuming. But everywhere traces of her work lingered, movements she had corrected, lessons absorbed silently. Lives saved not by heroics but by awareness, preparation, and calm. Her name surfaced in whispers and quiet gratitude. "Remember the woman who taught us this," they'd say. No plaques, no awards, no medals. Just the enduring impact of one person choosing to show up, to stay, and to protect others without needing to be seen. That was her legacy. Invisible, profound, eternal. Some heroes don't lead from the front. They don't wear the medals or stand in the spotlight. They stand beside. They stand behind. They are the quiet ones who notice everything, who correct the small mistakes, who carry the weight of experience without complaint. Elena Cross was one of them. And in every life she touched, in every movement corrected, in every fear calmed, she left a piece of herself behind. A reminder that courage isn't always loud, and strength isn't always visible. The world may never know her story in full. But the people who lived because of her, the people who learned because of her, carried it forward quietly, faithfully, and forever. Some heroes don't need recognition. They save lives in silence, teach lessons without applause, and leave a legacy invisible.